So here's a point here, that you got to learn how to stop and think. Touch your neighbor and say, stop moving so fast. Stop moving so fast. Some of y'all so quick to make a decision. Sit down somewhere. Whenever I'm challenged with some heavy issues, you know what I do? Take a nap. I promise you, I'll go plumb to sleep right in my office. I'll just chill. Boom. I'll just shut everything down and just close my eyes. I'll just wrap back in the chair and just let God talk to me in a dream or something or another. Because there's some things, watch this, you can do. But then there's some things only God can do. Look at your neighbor and say, ain't no sense in you staying awake. Because sometimes God works better while you sleep. And so what he did is he began to think and he dozed off. And God began to talk to him. So what you got to learn to do is to let God speak to you. Touch your neighbors and let God speak to you. And then the next thing, look there in verse 21. And notice what he says. And she shall, the angel is still talking, and she shall bring forth a son. And you shall call his name Jesus, for he will save his people from their sins. Now what you gain here is that you got to take heed to instructions. So it starts off that Joseph had to realize that this was a God thing. The miracle is of God. That he was a human being. That he had to stop and think and allow God to speak to him. Now he's realizing that I must follow instructions and follow the vision. The next thing you must learn is purpose in verse 22. Watch this. So all this was done. Touch your neighbor and say, everything you're going through is because God is trying to show the world something. He said all this was done. Don't you know that some of the stuff that's happening in your life is because God is just simply trying to fulfill something he already said. Look here in verse 22. And all this was done that it might be fulfilled. Whenever you see that word fulfill, it means that God is cramming in something that might be fulfilled, which was spoken by the Lord through the prophet, saying in verse 23, behold, a virgin shall be with child and bear a son, and they shall call his name Emmanuel, which is translated God with us. In other words, what you must learn here in this verse is that there is purpose in everything that you're doing. Look at somebody and say, everything you're going through is something God had planned before you got here. So many times we got to change our way of thinking and saying that I'm waiting on my miracle, when in actuality your miracle is waiting on you. Now watch this, y'all, because the miracle was here before you got here. God was letting him know that this is something that was written in Isaiah hundreds of years before you got here, Joseph. I had already decided that I was going to allow my spirit to come and impregnate a young virgin, and she shall bring forth a child, and they shall call his name Emmanuel. In other words, what you're going through is bigger than you. Touch somebody and say, what you're going through is bigger than you. Stop having a pity party. Talking about why they picking on me. Why I can't get no man. Why I ain't got no significant other. Why don't I have a better home? Why is it my car won't start? Why is it I can't have this? Why am I still in school? Why can't I have a whole lot of money in the bank? Why this? Why that? Well, don't you know Joseph had some whys? But God had to let him know that you're doing this, you're going through this, because I wrote this, and whatever I say has got to come to pass. The only thing you got to do is do what Joseph had to do. In verse 25, can I read verse 24 and verse 25? Then Joseph, being aroused from his sleep, touch your neighbor and say, you got to wake up now. Come on, look at him and say, wake up now. Then Joseph, being aroused from his sleep, did as the angel instructed him to do. In other words, when you get up with revelation, you got to obey what God says. You can't be hard-headed and still get no miracle. You can't be stiff-necked and still get no miracle. But you got to say, yes, Lord. Oh, Lord. And he was minded. He did what he said as the angel had commanded him. And he married the girl. Verse 25, and did not know her until the child was born. Now notice Joseph, just a man, committing himself, tying himself, paying the price, taking care of somebody else's child. Lord, help me in here. Committing himself to this situation. And now he's got another commitment. And you know what that is? He can't touch his new bride until the miracle is finished. Lord, help me in here. Not only is he a man of faith, but now he's a man of patience, because he's got to wait on God. I got to tell you, he's a bigger man than I am still. Not only I had a problem with the first situation, that my fiance is pregnant, but now I can't touch her. I can't touch her until after the miracle has shown up. Oh, don't you know that's what he's been meditating on for a long time, that I'm going to touch her as soon as they finish throwing the rice. I'm going to make some Minute Maid. Yes, I am. But now he can't touch her because he can't mess with the miracle. Ask me why. Because it's a God thing. Oh, touch somebody and say, hands off, hands off. There's some stuff in your life got to be hands off, because it's God only. Oh,